Welcome to what is going to be an amazing tour of a fantastic VHS collection. I am here with Dusty. Dusty is a lovely man who I met when we first opened as a cafe way back in 2016. And at that point, Dusty, or Dustin Crawley is his full name, but we call him Dusty. And both Dusty and I are a bit dusty today, so that's it's all part of the charm of a Sunday afternoon. Dustin was going for a world record in Gallagher, or was working on something with Gallagher, right? Gallagher was your game when I met you.
Yeah. I had a score that would have put me second in the world at the time, non-recorded, but ever since that score's doubled, so I gave up a long time ago.
Fair enough, man. But you found something else. You found something else that you became equally as passionate about as you were with retro games. So look, I don't want to keep everybody waiting. So I'm just here to say hi and welcome everybody. I'm going to pass over to Dusty, who's going to show you through his VHS collection and a few other fun tidbits and all that kind of stuff. Dustin is part of the crew who's responsible for the VHS Fleapit here at 1989. I'll do this plug now, so Dusty doesn't have to do it. That is it's our cult. I hate the word cult, but basically it's our VHS screening night where we screen things like, that you wouldn't normally catch off of Blu-ray or DVD or in the mainstream, like really, really trashy cult stuff that you really can only find off of VHS. So we screen it upstairs in the bar, and Dustin, Tom, Ash, and myself are sort of the guys behind it, but Dustin and Tom and Ash are the guys who have the amazing collections that provide the entertainment that we screen at the VHS Fleapit. Okay, that's my plug done. I am going to hand over to Dusty. Thank you so much for your time today, Dusty. I'll pop back in at the end, but I'm going to be watching with wide eyes. I can't wait to see this collection, so I'll hand over to you. Thanks, mate.
Thanks, Ben. Hello, guys. As Ben said, my name's Dusty. I thought I'd just do a quick intro as to what I collect and my little journey. I'll try and compress this as much as I can because I know people are keen to see some tapes. So I started collecting probably about 11 years ago, and it started with retro games, as a lot of people I know did, big fans of people like Angry Video Game Nerd on YouTube. And, that passion went for a good 5 to 6 years, maybe 7 years. I think you're either someone who has the collecting bug or you don't have the collecting bug. It's just one of those things, right? And apparently I have it pretty bad. I then went on to basketball shoes, but being 6'5" and having a size 15 shoe made that very expensive and very difficult. And as someone who likes constant instant gratification when collecting, it sucked. And then I made my way onto vintage Hawaiian shirts, as I'm a huge fan of Miami Vice, and I love that early mid 80s kind of big masculine men wearing colorful shirts vibe. It's totally me. Big fan of Tom Selleck. And then one day I was a bit lost with my collecting, and I had been back into games on and off, a few shoes, and I watched a horror movie that my brother and I loved as a kid, and we used to rent it when we went away at our family holiday house, and I wanted it. I needed to have it on VHS. I wanted to have that tangibility. I wanted to hold that film again, and I think that's definitely something that is so wonderful to collect. You spend all your money, but you spend it on things that are tangible, and that just kicked off a very obsessive habit. That combined with a new job, a pretty decent pay rise, and COVID kicking in, those were some really big drivers for me to push on with this collection. So with that being said, I just kind of wanted to show you what's in my bedroom, as it's kind of like a bit of a home base for nostalgia for me. So bear with me for one moment. I'm just going to swap the camera around to the back-facing one. All right, now I think, which one's better? Probably this one. Ben, I might need your assistance here. Which one do we think is better? The 0?
I would go with the wider one. I think the wider one works.
The wider one? This one here?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
Because
great.
you can just move the camera in, go close, all that kind of stuff, and you get to see a bit more of
All
the
right,
space. Yeah.
cool.
You know what you're doing.
All
All right. Bye.
right, bye. Cool. So this is where it all started. This little shelf housed my original starting VHS collection. As you can see, there's not all VHS there. You've got a PlayStation 1, a Sega Mega Drive, which was one of my very first consoles, some childhood games, a few cassettes up top. I have not dipped my toes too deep into cassette collecting because that is a very dangerous game when you're already someone who collects dead media. And a gorgeous little 1984 Panasonic, National Panasonic tape deck, which still runs wonderfully, and it's great. But down the bottom here, I'm just going to take a seat, is where we have some tapes. Now, primarily, I house my comedies and kind of childhood adventure movies, dramas. Once we get into the tape room, or the tape tomb, as I call it, you'll see that this kind of stuff doesn't really fit here. But with covers like that, I mean, how can you go wrong? You know, Encino Man, stuff like The Crow. I actually picked this one up recently. And I just love that really basic black cover. I think it's so wonderful. Some stuff that's not that old, but gotta love Brendan Fraser. I'm definitely prone to buying tapes sometimes for the meme of it, the joke of it. Here's one that's really great. That's actually quite hard to get. This is Vanilla Ice's one and only movie. It essentially plays like a Calvin Klein commercial. It's a horrible drama where Vanilla Ice is Vanilla Ice and effectively wins over the affection of this here lady by being incredibly abusive and a terrible person. And he wears outfits like that. And that's just one example of the horrific outfits that he wears. It's one of those films that you watch to laugh because it sucks so much. And I had to have it. That's definitely something that I love. Stuff like the Goonies. So this one's a little bit faded, but I think sometimes the beauty of getting these old films is that they have things like sticker marks where stickers used to be. Sometimes they're absolutely covered in stickers. And this one's clearly been sun drenched. As you can see, that's the original color of what the art should be. But it just has a vibe to it. And, I'm sure if you were tuned into Tommy B's live yesterday, you would have heard him say similar things. Tommy and I are very good friends, and we're constantly talking about tapes. Things like Back to the Future 2, you can see it's a bit wrecked up there, but there's just a vibe to it, and I think that, there's just something about holding that tape, that tangibility that's just really wonderful. You don't get with DVDs or, Netflix, I think. Let's see what else we've got here. This movie is a really good example of something that was actually only very recently, to my knowledge, put on Blu-ray. It's called Freaked, and it stars Alex Winter as a kid who goes to kind of a freak show, and he learns that the freaks at the freak show are actually all like mutated humans, and he becomes one as he's there. And you actually wouldn't know, there's no picture of it, but there's a werewolf in this, and it's actually Keanu Reeves. He's advertised on the front here, but you would never know that it was him because he doesn't talk like him. But this film was actually quite expensive on tape up until recently because it's never been put on Blu-ray. So, that's another really good thing about about finding some of these tapes is I think that, my data is not always 100% correct, but approximately about, I think, 20 to 30% of all films released on VHS have not been migrated across to Blu-ray or even DVD. Twins is another one that's absolutely classic. I absolutely want to go to a Halloween party dressed up as Arnold with someone who's very short, dressed up as Danny in these horrible beige suits, and no one have any idea what we're dressed as or why we're wearing dad suits. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. This one's in a nice little, what we call a soft clamshell, as it's quite soft there. This is, I'm fairly certain this is a first generation, but sometimes these soft clamshells from the Roadshow label were generally a second generation, which we will get into. What else have we got here? Michael Jackson's Moonwalker. I mean, I just feel like if you're going to have this film, have it in this big chunky box, you know? You want to open this up and watch the tape of Michael Jackson's Moonwalker. If anyone hasn't seen this film, it's pretty wild. It's basically just like a whole bunch of Michael Jackson's like music videos tied together, and Michael turns into a panther, and then he turns into, I think it's like a Lamborghini. I'm not a car guy, so I don't know. But absolutely wild, heaps cooked, and totally worth your time. The last one I'll show you from down here is Mac and Me. So this is actually kind of, I guess you would call it McDonald's E.T. So this little alien who this kid in a wheelchair has to help. To be honest with you, I've only watched it once, but there's a really famous scene where a little kid falls off a cliff in a wheelchair and crashes into water, and it's just, you got to see it. It's just look up that scene. It's absolutely ridiculous. If we move up here, it'll go past as my nice little Hawaiian shirt collection. And we have a few more pretty fun tapes. We've got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2. I mean, the cover is it's just so cool. Look how 90s that is. You know, Vanilla Ice featuring again, of course. It's great. Ones like, you know, The Wizard, which essentially was just one big, great advertisement for Super Mario Brothers 3. Really cool, fantastic stuff. You know, some more classics like Mortal Kombat, The Willies, which is a really great one. I'm going to grab that one down and show you guys. If anyone's familiar with Creepshow, the horror anthology series, The Willies is basically like the kids' Goosebumps version, but it was made, obviously, you know, in 1990 when it was still okay for kids' films to be actually a little bit, you know, scary. And Sean Astin's in it as well, which is interesting. Now, how do I watch these movies? Well, I have a nice little 13-inch TVCR, which is great for when you want to lug around a CRT TV to watch tapes, which I guess I'm a bit of a crazy person for doing so. But the main way I watch them is on this 1982 Philips CRT. Now, this is a 27-inch tube, which for 1982 was really large. And the woman that I purchased this off actually had said that this TV had sat in her lounge room since the day it was purchased. And if you work out in today's money how much this TV cost, is a $5,000 TV back in the day. It was quite advanced for 1982. A lot of old CRTs would have dials where you would have to tune in the channel, but this actually just has a tune button, which again, quite advanced. You know, a VCR, which is a later model, but they're very reliable. And just a few little pieces littered, you know, a nice little 1984 Sony Walkman, a Game Boy, a few tapes. As you can tell, very big fan of Miami Vice, the Neon. We've got an original Terminator 2 cup, which I'm kind of afraid to drink out of. I don't want to get poisoned. But this is how I watch tapes in my bedroom. Now, I think what I'm going to do is I'll take you guys through to the main room. So just excuse me shuffling throughout my house. Here we are in the main room, which if any of you have seen the little video that I popped on my Instagram, you would know this is the tape room, or the tape tomb as it's called. So I think I'll start here. So this is my animation kids, kind of a few kids TV shows, and we have some anime and a little bit of spicy hentai there, you know. So toys are definitely not my go-to, but you know, I think that as I get older, the more I want to be just surrounded by the things that were all holistically nostalgic for me. So a lot of these, you know, Terminator figures and Aliens figures and Predator and stuff, they were things I saw as a kid, and I think that, you know, that's really powerful because nostalgia to me is one of the only things that's still pure as an adult. I got this Street Fighter Guile the movie figure just because I thought it was so stupid. Arctic Assault Guile. Who bought that? Clearly no one, because that's why I have it. We have a Vectrex up there. I do have a bit of a retro game collection, which I will touch on just slightly. But you can see we've got some original He-Man VHS. Now, these came in what were called slip cases. As you can see, this is just a cardboard sleeve. And also, as you can see, they didn't survive very well. So we keep them in the protective cases. Admittedly, I'm only 32. And He-Man was before my time. But I think being obsessed with the 1980s, it was such an iconic cartoon that it had to be in my collection. And as we kind of make our way across here, this is more of a 1980s shelf with some Transformers, Mr. T, some Turtles. This is John Matrix from Commando, and this is Sylvester Stallone from Over the Top, which if people haven't seen, it's a movie about Sylvester Stallone who plays an arm wrestling truckie. And the figures are incredibly rare these days, but they had this cool little dial and they had this little table where you could actually arm wrestle with the other figures. Now, if we have a look through some of my VHS collection here, I'm going to make an absolute mess. Gem and the Holograms. I mean, that just screams 1980s. It's absolutely fabulous. It's about a singer and her. Well, Gem and the Holograms, a pop group who have other pop groups that they compete against, and they get into all silly hijinks. And the thing is, it's actually quite watchable. It's definitely really fun. One that is really cool is Chuck Norris Karate Commandos. Now, this is quite rare, and it stars Chuck Norris playing himself, which was very uncommon. And the cartoon was actually cancelled because studio execs said it was too violent, despite there being plenty of violence in, Ninja Turtles and other cartoons. And they said, yeah, but Chuck, you're a real person. So we don't want kids thinking that if you're real, you can do this stuff. So really, really cool, quite short-lived. One of the few kind of celebrity ones. Another one that's really cool is that people don't realize is Rambo. You have a graphic, violent action series that has a kids cartoon, which was such a common thing in the 80s and early 90s. And I just think that was really cool. I'm just going to shovel these guys to the side so we can get to some of the Turtles tapes. Now, these Turtles tapes are really, really classic. I think, again, kind of before my time, but I did see some of them as a kid, growing up. It was, it was definitely a show that I saw. What else have we got? I'm a very big Incredible Hulk fan, and this was a really, really cool, tape to get a hold of when I did. What else have we got here? Silverhawks. This is one that Tommy B got me on. If you have no idea what it is, it's really awesome. It's just kind of like, a gang of people who have gifted powers, or they get these gifted powers. They become the Silverhawks. And it has one of the best 80s cartoon theme songs. I strongly advise you to look this up. I think the only thing better than that is the 1986 Transformers movie theme. We step into kind of the 1990s here. As you can see, I've got some Street Sharks tapes, some Biker Mice from along with all of the figures. Biker Mice here, some of the X-Men tapes. A lone Captain Planet tape, which I hope does grow a little bit more in the future. And more 90s stuff here. You'll see, we've got some Power Ranger tapes. Huge fan of the original series, and I think the only way to watch it is on VHS. It's just, you have to. It's so silly. As you can see, some more figures, some X-Men, Power Rangers, Terminator, Hulk, a Shaq figurine, which I just think is so silly. Some Polly Pockets. I just love the color palettes of these. Some Mighty Max, if people remember those. Kind of the boys' gross version of Polly Pockets. Absolutely love this stuff. I think it's just super cool and indicative of the time. And making our way down to anime. So I'm a really big fan of old anime, specifically cyberpunk anime. Some really well-known ones would be things like Akira, AD Police, Armitage 3. But I just really appreciate that kind of old style of anime. I think it's absolutely fabulous. You know, Goku Midnight Eye is really obscure, and if you like sci-fi, if you like anime, strongly suggest that's a really good one to watch. You know, a few down here we have, you know, the Street Fighter movie, Perfect Blue, Street Fighter 2 animated movie. Pretty good, pretty fun. Some series, you know, Cowboy Bebop, the Mortal Kombat animated cartoon series. Really poorly animated, very low quality, but actually pretty fun. I can definitely suggest it. What I can't suggest watching, unless you want to suffer, is Mortal Kombat, the animated video, The Journey Begins. It's a combination of some of the most low-rate animation with the earliest CGI, as you can see there. It's one of the best, worst things I've ever seen. I would strongly suggest looking it up online if you can't get a copy of it, because this is definitely not on DVD. But absolutely trash. As I said, I've got some spicy hentai I'm not going to show because of some graphic stuff. I don't collect that because I'm a perv. I just like it because it's weird and obscure. Alrighty, let's make our way across. This is my comfy little 80s couch, Blade Runner poster, and a cool little advertisement for some NES stuff. Not going to go too deep into this, but this is the remnants of my retro game collection. I think there's probably about maybe 300 or 400 games in total. At one point, it was about 1,700, so it was a big thing for me. Streets of Rage, much like Tommy, is one of my favorites, with Streets of Rage 2 being my favorite game of all time, and this is my childhood copy. I actually got a custom-made Max Thunder action figure, who's my favorite character, and when they released the pins for the new games, I had to get him. If anyone's playing the Streets of Rage 4 game, the new DLC is amazing. You have to try it if you haven't. Got some boxed NES games. I'm just going to quickly scan over these so you can spend all the time on tapes. Vectrex games, Atari games, a few cool little things, you know, like a Zelda LCD watch. These do work, but I don't have batteries in them so they don't rot. This one, as you can see, I've sort of had to drill an extra hole in it because I'm a big boy, and these are made for children, not giant men. I've got a hip top for anyone that remembers those. And it's really cool Sony Xperia Play, which was my favorite phone because, much like the hip top, it slides, and you could play PlayStation 1 and emulate everything, so I could be at work playing Streets of Rage 2 back in the day. Sega Mega Drive, which is my all-time favorite console to collect for. You know, I've got some cool things like a Sega Nomad, which, for those that don't know, is effectively a portable Sega. So it had an AV out, a power out, even a second controller port. So you could sit on the bus with your buddy and play Streets of Rage. It has a heavy battery pack, takes 6 batteries, and they zap in about an hour. But, you know, very ahead of its time. Some Sega Master System, some Game Boy stuff, PlayStation 1, NES, GameCube, Wii, PlayStation 2 stuff. So, as I said, not going to spend a little bit too much time on all of this. If you guys want to know, reach out. Got a cool little Streets of Rage light and a Terminator 2 thing. You'll start to see a theme. I have a big thing for Arnold and those games. This is my little retro game setup. So I have a nice 16-inch JVC PVM. Tommy was talking about them yesterday. They just have an incredible pixel density that makes, you know, 16-bit and 8-bit games look amazing. And I've paired that with a 1982 18-inch CRT. It's old, it's fuzzy, it looks like shit, but man, it feels so good when you're watching a tape on this or playing something like original Nintendo. It's fantastic. And, you know, have some key consoles set up with something that's actually kind of cool. I'll show you guys. So this is actually a portable VCR from the mid-80s. So I don't know if the battery is powered. It is. So you pop the tape in, pop it down, and off you go. You only have to, it does have a battery, which is a lead battery. And when I ordered this from the battery store, the guy looked at me very confused and he said that no one's ordered one of these in about 15 years. And the warehouse had to go right to the back of their stock to find it. But this was essentially designed to be hooked up to a VHS camera, so or just any kind of camera that had the correct output, and you'd pop a tape in here, and you would actually, it has some little inputs here. You would hook this up to a leather bag, and you would lug this around with a camera and film. Absolutely ridiculous. So yeah, one of my favorite things. Works really well. So onto the wall of tapes. So I have, it's coming to close to 1,000. It's at like 960 something tapes, and I think I need to cap off about there. But let's have a quick look at what we have here. So we have Ninja films and Akira, because I just love this big box Akira. I just think it looks so badass. But Ninja films. So let's talk about them. They suck. They're trash. They are absolute garbage, and that's why I love them. The obsession of ninjas in the 1980s was just such a weird thing. You know, this has got like a cool holographic cover. I think this is an English release. I purchased a whole heap of these off a guy in Italy who had one of the biggest ninja collections in the world. He had over 1,000 ninja films. And I watched these to laugh, to enjoy. Raw force. You know, it's got cannibals and ninjas and white dudes who are martial artists. It's absolutely nuts. A white phantom? I mean, come on. How silly is that? He's a ninja in wearing white. What's he doing? Ninja Terminator. Now, I'm going to harp on about this for a sec. This is one of my favorite ninja films because there's a director who's really famous for making these incredibly low-budget films called Godfrey Ho. And what he would do is he would basically purchase footage from Hong Kong films, and he would mash that with films with new footage. Very often, here's another one, Knight and Warrior, which is obscene and very stupid. He would mash that with new footage, and a lot of that new footage consisted of out-of-shape, middle-aged white men wearing very colorful ninja outfits and eye makeup. Richard Harrison, as you can see that name up top, he was a star of westerns in the 1960s and 70s, and he is in a heap of these films. Here's another one, Ninja Kill. I mean, look at that cover. It's just ridiculous. And look at that dude. How's he going to hide from anyone? Absolutely hilarious. And you know, when you talk about painted artwork being a reason for preserving these tapes, you know, look at this. That is not going on any kind of DVD cover ever. It's going to be, if they redid that, it'd be a photo of some dude holding a gun with a ninja or something. This is a really rare one. From my knowledge, this is one of the only known copies in Australia. I will probably say that a few times, slight flex. And, you know, if there are any big boy collectors who have been collecting for a long time, please correct me on this, but this is an incredibly rare film. Absolute Z-grade trash. Had to have it. I'll show you a couple more. Okay, one's Ninja 3, The Domination. This is probably one of the most famous, well-known ninja movies from the 80s. It's a Cannon film, so you know it's going to be great trash. Cannon were responsible for making heaps of really, really cheesy 80s movies. I mentioned Over the Top. That's a Cannon film. Bloodsport's probably one of their most well-known with Jean-Claude Van Damme, you know. This stars an aerobics teacher who gets possessed by the spirit of an evil ninja. And there's a scene where she tries to use aerobics to exercise herself, like exorcise herself. Absolutely cool. Watch the Shadows Dance. This is an Australian ninja film. And look who that is. Nicole Kidman, one of her first roles after, I think, Rad was her first role. BMX Bandits, rather. BMX Bandits. A few more really lovely covers, you know, fantastic painted covers. Korean Connection. I mean, just look at that. Like, I saw that, and I've never seen this film before. I still haven't gotten around to watching it, but it's absolutely fantastic. You know, moving through down the shelf, just a random one. Lou Ferrigno Cage stars as a Vietnam vet who gets shot in the head and then is, I guess, he's mentally handicapped and has to fight He gets tricked into fighting in a cage, and it's just giant Lou Ferrigno beating the crap out of dudes while his brother, Reb Brown, played by Reb Brown, tries to get him out of it. On to the next genres of films, which is fantasy and adventure. Stuff like Death Stalker. Should probably give a little bit of a heads up that as we make our way through these films, you're probably going to see potentially a little bit of nudity, some potential violence. So if you're adverse to some spice, I'll try and give you a bit of a warning. Here's a great one, Masters of the Universe, the He-Man movie. You couldn't have chosen a better person other than Dolph Lundgren to play He-Man, but unfortunately that movie didn't do so well. Bloodstone, fantastic Indiana Jones ripoff, starring I forget the gentleman's name, but he was one of the biggest Bollywood stars of all time back in the day, and it's absolutely like a really, really fun film. The Barbarians. Now, this is an interesting one because we've got the Barbarian Brothers, Paul and David, I think their names were, and effectively they were bodybuilding twins who wanted to get in movies, and they starred in a series of really bad action movies, but this is probably their best one. It's another canon film. You've got old mate Michael Berryman, who's very famous for being in The Hills Have Eyes, and it's actually a really, really fun movie. And I do love all these muscly men movies. Just gotta love them. I think one of the themes that we're going to be having at the 1989 Fleapit is Flextacular Fantasy, and I'll be supplying the films, and it'll be some of these fantasy films where the only requirement is the hero has to be an incredibly buff human being. This is a 1983 Hercules starring Lou Ferrigno, and it's really, really good. It's got some fantastic, like, terrible effects where Lou's fighting these giant, terribly crafted monsters. You've got the sequel, Hercules 2. I mean, look at that cover in this orange clamshell. Absolute madness. Really famous one that everyone loves, obviously Conan the Barbarian, the original Thorn EMI release. Had to have it. Absolutely needed it. Sword and Sorcerer, fantastic cover. Just looks like the cover of a fantasy book. Just absolutely amazing. Something I picked up recently that's not very rare, but I just look at it. Galgameth. It sounds like a fantasy drug. And yeah, you can see it kind of looks like that TV show Dinosaurs from the 90s, if they invaded a fantasy film made for kids. Just very, very silly. Got some kind of women of power, if you will, Warrior Queen. These fantasy covers are just absolutely amazing. Amazons, like this cover art is just essential viewing. Sorceress, she's got her buns out with the blade. Very nice. And it's not a woman, but silly film. You're the hunter from the future. So even though he's called the hunter from the future, he's from the future, but then he travels back in time. So he's from the future, trapped in prehistoric times, searching for his past. This movie is absolutely nuts. Reb Brown is someone that you should absolutely get to know because he's kind of like, if you think of the biggest guys in action in Hollywood at the time, you'd think of Arnold and you'd think of Sly and you'd think of even, kind of that second tier where you had Jean-Claude and Steven Seagal. Reb Brown is kind of the Z grade tier, and his yells are legendary. A few board games here. I have a sealed copy of Dream Phone, which is a game where you effectively use a phone to find out who your crush is. I will be unsealing that at some point. Until then, we'll move on to the next shelf. Action movies. So, huge fan of action movies. I'll show you some of the top tier stuff. Strike Commando, a Reb Brown movie that is essentially a shot-by-shot ripoff of Rambo, First Blood Part 2. Just ridiculous. The scene where Rambo is he's getting torched by the guy, he's being tortured. Reb Brown recreates that, but he looks like he's just doing the biggest shit he's ever done in his life. It's hilarious. The Instructor. You will definitely start to learn if you collect and watch these movies of what a a vanity project is. Vanity projects is where they're usually made and produced by a single guy or a group of people who are obsessed with themselves. And this guy, he was a really big karate instructor, and he kind of looks. He's been referred to as Burt Pesci, the love child of Burt Reynolds and Joe Pesci. He doesn't look like that. He's about 5 foot tall, and he has a wig in the movie. And the movie is absolutely terrible. It's amazing. Hollywood Cop. Now, this is a very big ticket as far as I'm concerned. There's only a handful, I think 3 known copies of this in Australia that I have seen. If anyone's heard of Samurai Cop, this was the movie that Amir Shavani made first. It's just Z-grade madness. Absolutely worth a watch. Miami Connection. Now, this is fantastic. This film was released, I think, in 1985, 87. And it's got everything you could want. It's got ninjas, cocaine, terrible acting. The movie was made by a guy who ran a karate studio, as a lot of these are, and he was in his mid-30s but was playing a young college student. And this film was actually lost for quite some time until I think in 2015 they found the original negative and did a big Blu-ray and VHS release. But we got a release in Australia, and yeah, this is an incredibly rare film. Only a handful of them in Australia. Twin Dragon Encounter. Here's another amazing vanity project for you guys. This is the McNamara twins who are in love with themselves and each other. They're 2 twin Canadian martial artists, kickboxers, and this movie is pure vanity project where they take their girlfriends to their private island, and then a group of thugs tries to invade it. And the description on the back talks about how exhilarating the fight scenes are, except they slowed them all down, and I think it's because they only had about 45 minutes of footage, and then they realized they had to pad the movie out. Deadly Prey. This is a really famous one, really famous for a couple of scenes. It's essentially another Rambo ripoff, but it's with a blonde bodybuilder running around the jungle in a pair of very tight, very short jean shorts. Really cool film. Again, very rare, absolutely worth a watch. Oh, just conscious of the time. We've got about 20 minutes left and I've still got all this, so I'm going to try and power through as much of this as I can. You know, we've got some really good action films, some trash. The Banker, his interest is deadly. This film sucks. It's not violent. It's not cool. But that cover and that tagline, I had to own it. You know, Picasso Trigger. Andy Sidaris is a guy who's really well known for making action movies with it's called Triple B movies. It was Bombs, Boobs, and something else. But basically, he hired really handsome and beautiful people starring in these terrible movies. Hard Ticket to Hawaii is probably his most well-known and loved one, including, I think his name is Ridge from Bold and the Beautiful, starring as one of the main characters who exclusively uses a rocket launcher at point-blank range at all times, which is obscene. Very cool. I'll show you something that's a little bit unknown. Malibu Heat. Now, you might recognize that that's the hop. This is actually the pilot for Baywatch. They just released it as a standalone movie called Malibu Heat, which is really cool. Yeah, I just think this one kind of goes with the Miami Vice vibes. Going through here, you've got some classics like Action Jackson, Carl Weathers, who's really well known for being in Predator. This is his action movie, and it's just cheesy fun. Absolutely check it out. No holds barred. I can't really say very much about this film just because I feel like I've said so much with so many of my friends, but it's essentially Hulk Hogan playing Hulk Hogan under a different name, wrestling Debo from Friday. And it is the sweatiest movie of all time. The funny thing is Zeus actually came to the WWF because Vince McMahon was a madman, and he couldn't wrestle and he had to have a match with Hulk Hogan. He's not a great wrestler because he was upset that he lost in the movie. So this weird fourth wall converging plot, terrible. This Park Is Mine is a really cool film. Tommy Lee Jones plays a Vietnam vet who has a bit of a kind of PTSD episode and takes over Central Park in New York. And I think the cover, it just, look at that color palette. Terminator, Arnold, Commando, one of the greatest. That's currently what we've got running on the TV. At the moment. Unmasking the Idol. This is a awesome film. It's a James Bond ripoff starring a guy who has a baboon as his best friend, and the baboon does stuff in the movie. And this is the sequel, Order of the Black Eagle. The greatest moment in this movie is when the baboon drives a baboon-sized tank, which is probably like a Toyota Corolla covered in a bunch of armor, and kills a bunch of dudes. It's insane. It's just worth that alone. Making our way down, we've got some series of films, the Death Wish series, the Rambo series. You know, you've got First Blood, you've got Rambo First Blood Part 2, and the beautiful artwork of Rambo 3 with that shiny cover. Very cool. Some more Stallone stuff. You'll notice that these two look very similar. And you can tell that it's because the artist of this just ripped that off. And that's actually the second time he did it for that. So that's pretty funny. Invasion USA, absolute Chuck Norris classic, where a bunch of terrorists invade the USA and Chuck Norris is somehow the only man to do the job to take them down. Absolute garbage. Immortal Combat, Rowdy Roddy Piper, Meg Foster, and Sonny Chiba in a Mortal Kombat ripoff. Also Malibu from American Gladiators. Guys, if you've never heard of this, please get yourself familiar with it. It is nuts. What do we got down here? I recently on my Instagram, if you guys would like to follow me, I'm Thick with 3 C's. That's THICCC dot Flair, as in Ric Flair. Thick Flair. Did a whole showcase on some of my rarest Japanese films. I'm a big fan of those. Some cool ones is Horrible High Heels, which is also known as a Chinese Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's about a dude who owned a shoe store and went out of business, so he started killing people and making shoes out of their skin. Cool. Tessa the Iron Man, which is a fabulous, fabulous cyberpunk film that's black and white. It's Blade Runner meets, well, there you go. Suppose David Lynch and Cronenberg kind of, made a film in the 1970s. Absolutely whack. So much fun. Evil Dead Trap is a fantastic horror movie that doesn't get enough attention. It's kind of like, it's about this reporter who gets kidnapped and, or she gets sent these snuff films and then has to go and investigate, and she gets into this Saw-like scenario, but this is from the 1980s. Something cool. The Japanese Demolition Man release in this cute little box. Just looks so cool. All right, one big one, another Red Brown. This is Robo War. This is a Predator ripoff. And Red Brown, his gang of BMFs, big motherfuckers, that's what they're called, have to find this robot who's taking them down. It sucks. It's so good. It's a Bruno Mattei film who's notorious for really, really bad Italian ripoffs. So yeah, let's have a look and go. Hey, Brendan, nice to see you, mate. All right, we've got some more Japanese films. They're some of my more extreme films. I'll probably go through them if people want to see them, but I'm not going to go into too much detail there. Have some kind of exploitation genre-ish films. I'm a very big fan of early 80s hip-hop, and Breakdance is a fabulous, fabulous movie about a crew of breakdancers that have to save a rec center or something. That might be the sequel, but this is actually the first movie that Jean-Claude Van Damme is in. If you want to see Jean-Claude Van Damme, a very young Jean-Claude Van Damme in a black leotard dancing terribly, check it out. Beat Street is another one. Really, really fun hip-hop movie. The early 1980s. Stars a lot of really early hip-hop groups, Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, Funky 4+1 more, heaps of them. Lots of cool stuff. The Last Dragon is a really, really great film. It's kind of a blaxploitation meets martial arts movie where a young guy whose name is Bruce Leroy has to take down the Shogun, Shonuff, and it's insane. It's just absolutely wild. Some cool ones, Rollerblade, which despite the amazing cover, is kind of a shitty film. It's kind of not watchable. It's pretty bad. Hell Comes to Frogtown, another Rowdy Roddy Piper movie with anthropomorphic frogs and babes and post-apocalyptic madness. Very cool stuff. Puma Man. Now, Puma Man's quite a rare one. This is one I actually got from Tommy B. This is a late 70s, early 80s. I think it's like a British Filipino production, and it stars a guy who gets the powers of Puma Man, and it's a TV movie, I believe, and it has some of the most wholesome, bad 1970s special effects. I definitely don't know that this is not on Blu-ray, but if you can watch this film, it's just great. You got to check it out. Here's a good one. Rolling Vengeance. It's about a guy who he's done bad by a group of truckers, and so he gets his monster truck and goes and crushes a bunch of people. Surf Nazis Must Die is a classic trauma film, along with Class of Nukem High. Got some stuff in here like Caged Heat 3000. I Was a Teenage Zombie, which is terrible. Mr. No Legs. Now, again, a very rare film. I only know of a few copies of this in Australia. Stars a man who has no legs and he has shotguns in his wheelchair. And there's a few scenes where he fights people with very poorly practiced martial arts. This is a UK release. I think it was a UK only release on VHS, but at least in PAL territory, but fabulous. Very, very fun. Shogun Assassin is an awesome one. It's a culmination of Lone Wolf and Cub, which was a 1970s TV show about a samurai and his son who was a kind of a Ronin, and it's very violent, lots of blood splattering everywhere, really cool. This shelf is actually all reproductions. So Ashy, who's part of the crew for 1989 Fleapit, he runs a label called Tropical Decay. Go and check them out. And he essentially makes repro films. So some of the films, when you're collecting VHS, were released, in certain regions only, for example, in the US. And it actually kind of makes it really hard to collect over here, because if you're using old technology, you've got a 27-inch Bang & Olufsen. This was from Tommy B. Thank you, Tommy. Running on a VCR. They can both play American tapes. But if you go and watch something on, watch an NTSC tape on that, it's not going to play. These films are also very rare. Tales from the Quated Zone is one of the rarest VHS horrors in the US. I think, the last copy sold, a friend of mine sold it for $1,600 US, I think. And when you really, really get into the deep, deep, dark kind of area of VHS, that's a lot of money. And when you can get a beautiful reproduction, done by Ashy in a clamshell, all stick it up, and it plays perfectly on your Australian TV, Australian VCR, why not? You've got some absolutely weird ones like Zuma, which is based on a Filipino comic book where a guy with 2 giant snake arms kills people. It's nuts. Got some post-apocalyptic goodies here. Just love these covers. Salute of the Jugger's a really famous one. It's got a 3D cover here. Wheels of Fire, Slave Girls from Beyond Infinity. All right, let's keep going. Sci-Fi, with a few spicy extras. This is definitely 2 films that I'm very excited to have. This is For Your Height Only, or Agent 00 as he's known. This is a gentleman named Weng Weng. He holds the world record for the world's shortest leading man. He was a Filipino exploitation star from the 1970s, who's no longer with us, and starred in a series of films. A lot of them have been lost to time. And a man named Andrew Level, I hope I'm pronouncing his surname, he spent a lot of his life dedicated to finding out about this guy. You should definitely look him up. This film is absolutely amazing. He's a tiny little man who he's a martial artist. He's a stuntman, and there's some really cool stunts in this film. And little bit of a flex, I'm fairly certain I'm the only person in Australia who has 2 complete original silver Filmways copies of this movie. So that's probably one of my rarest set of films, and one of the only films that I have 2 of. Up here, got some absolute classics. The original Nightmare on Elm Street with the bloody cover. Everyone loves that one in just beautiful condition. We've got the original Blade Runner, along with a reproduction that my partner got me made of Blade Runner 2049, which is very cool. Made by VCR World. Shout out to VCR World. They're in the States. Got something really cool that everyone always loves, the Fright Night coffin clam. Mine's a bit beat up, but oh man, isn't that badass? It's just so cool. All right, we're down to the last 10, guys. Gonna try and go through as quick as I can. Sci-Fi Madness, Cyborg Cop, very shitty film, but it's got a cyborg on it shooting a laser at nothing and a ninja in the background, so I had to have it. Mutant Hunt is a Z-grade trash movie that I used to watch when I was a child and absolutely loved it. Got some really, really cool, poorly done special effects. Oh man, so many tapes. Retaliator, done under a different name across the pond, but essentially it's kind of a Terminator ripoff, where I forget her name, Sandra something. She was Valeria in Conan the Barbarian. She's the main character in that. Metal Beast, which is one that still hasn't been put on Blu-ray or DVD. It's kind of like The Howling, but if The Howling had a metal werewolf. Really, really cool. Some more classic ones. Hands of Steel is one that we recently played at the Fleapit when it was open. It's an Italian Terminator ripoff, starring an ex-NFL player that cannot act in any way, shape, or form. Roboforce. Now, this one's actually quite rare and really cool. It's kind of like the Hong Kong version of RoboCop. It's known as I Love Maria in China, and the suit is very reminiscent of the Metropolis suit from the famous Metropolis sci-fi movie. It's bonkers. It is absolutely bonkers. I really, really suggest you try and look that up. I believe that we might have been the only ones who got the dub. I've only been able to find a subbed version of it. Some classics that everyone always loves. The clamshell of Alien. And of course, Aliens. I'm not going to show you Alien 3 because everyone always loves that. Nemesis is a really cool series of Terminator ripoffs, starring Olivia Grunier, who is kind of like a B-grade Jean-Claude Van Damme. Only the second film starred a female bodybuilder named Sue Price. As you can see, she's quite the fit lady. And the third film is much of the same. They actually made a fourth film, and it was just using the unused footage of the third movie and the second movie. So it's not really great. All right, here we go. I just want to quickly show you guys some of the spiciest stuff in my collection. For Ladies Only, the erotic world of male stripping. Big fan of weird and wacky tapes. We didn't get a lot of them. A lot of the cool instructional stuff that you see online, we didn't get. This is quite a rare one and very obscure. It's actually an indoctrination tape used for by a cult to try and get young people to be interested in the cult. It's a series of very poorly put together music videos, but the cover alone is worth the price of admission. I mean, you've got a monkey with a briefcase, some kind of CIA looking dude, and a man shooting lasers out of his fingers while a very happy couple are in love. Absolute dog shit. Weirdo New York is kind of one of a host of films that were kind of like mondo, weird, kind of trying to show wacky culture, very exploitative nature. And this one is one I told I was going to show off. Sexy girls with sexy guns. This is literally just a group of women in bikinis shooting guns. It's very American. It's very stupid. Absolutely never been put on DVD, and just worth watching when you're drunk and want to be an idiot. Barney Safety. No reason to own this other than it's Barney in a safety video, just because why not? How to Master Your Microwave, which is literally a 60-minute instructional video on how to cook stuff in your microwave that you should never fucking put in your microwave. The Flint Bones and Edward Penis Hands, a very famous porn ripoff. All right, guys, let's get down to the Good stuff. Creating Realm Lazar. This is an American film that it's a failed pilot for a TV kids show that's very interesting how he acts towards the children, I should say. It's not spicy or bad or anything, but it's just kind of funny. This is probably also the only copy in Australia. Beware Children at Play is a famous trauma film for having a child massacre scene at the end of it, which is absolutely hilarious. And I mean that because you have to watch it. There's no actual real violence towards kids, but it's good. Chinese Hercules, Bolo Yeung, who was in Enter the Dragon, and Chong Li in Bloodsport. He started a trilogy of Chinese muscle man movies. You had Chinese Hercules, Chinese Goliath, and also Chinese Samson, which I don't have. One that I would really love to show you is Robo Vampire, which it's as you can see, it's an illegally used image of RoboCop hugging a traditional Chinese vampire. I'm not sure what they're called, but the suit in it is like soft felt. It's not a robot suit. All right, so for time, I'll quickly show you my horror collection, which is often the most loved. We've got the Hellbound.
Hey, Dusty, can you hear me? Hello, mate.
I sure can, Benny.
No, okay, I'm going to give you an extra 10 minutes so you don't have to rush because this is great stuff and I want to see what's in your horror collection. Haha.
Cool. All right, man. Sounds good.
If that's good for you.
Totally fine with me, mate.
Woohoo. Okay.
All right, let's go. So, a Hellbound Hellraiser double pack. So I'm not going to try and open this with one hand because I will drop it. But it has the first two Hellraiser movies. And it's really cool because, you know, I remember seeing this in the shop as a kid and you just gravitate towards it because it's so giga compared to everything else. I've got an original Evil Dead in the Filmways silver clamshell, which is incredibly rare, in beautiful condition. Absolutely fabulous film. And of course, Evil Dead 2 in the CBS Fox release, the big box release, which is really nice. Now, I used to have kind of an aura for my horror films, but I don't really anymore. I just have a few really great Palace Explosives. This is a really famous label that's quite expensive. Satan's Blade, which is kind of actually an art film masked as a horror film, which is really cool. One that just caught my eye that I want to show you guys is, remember how I told you there was an action movie with a baboon as the sidekick? Well, this is the same baboon as an evil killer known as Shakma. And what they did in this film to get the baboon hyped up is they would put a female baboon on the other side of the door to get her in heat, to get him primed up and aggressive, banging on the door, trying to get into the humans in the next room. But he just wanted to mate with the female baboon. Night of the Zombies, The Beyond, Swarm, which just has such a fantastic slick. For those who aren't in the VHS knowledge, a slick is what we call the sleeve that's inside the clamshell there where the artwork is contained. Here, it's cool. This is a reproduction because the original didn't come out in Australia, and it did, but it's incredibly rare. Nail Gun Massacre. This is about a woman who gets attacked and dons a biker outfit and kills people with nail guns. It's absolutely stupid. The Pit, which is a Canadian horror film which stars a little kid that has some squirming abominations spawned by the devil inside a pit, and he tricks people into falling in there to get killed. Some more cool ones, Zombie Flesh Eaters on Starbase. Starbase is a very rare kind of older label. A lot of the older guys who have been collecting have a lot of Starbase and Palace Explosives when, you know, tape collecting was really, really cheap. But as I've only been into it for, you know, the last 18 months, they're quite high in value. You know, you will see a lot of those kinds of films in, you know, if you go and see some of the bigger collections in Australia. I by no means have the biggest collection in any way, shape, or form. As I said, I've only been collecting for 2 years, but I prefer quality over quantity for the most part. Parasite is another fantastic film with gorgeous artwork. Terrible monster movie with a weird looking frog dude. You've got some really great ones like The Burning, which is a really famous slasher movie that has the raft scene, as what people call it, is when this guy comes, the killer comes with these clippers and cuts fingers off and stabs necks. And Peter Alexander's actually in that. He's a teenager but still somehow receding already. 13th Floor, which is a really cool Aussie horror film about a haunted 13th floor. We've got some cool stuff like Street Trash, which is a melt movie, as they're called, where people drink this drink called Viper, and it just causes them to melt. It's gross, it's squishy, everything we love. Shopping Mall, really, really famous, great, silly one that everyone seems to love. It's about a robot that goes a bit wild and kills people. Sleepaway Camp 2. It's quite a rare one in really, really good condition. The first Sleepaway Camp is quite a well-known slasher movie. This one's not as good or as violent, but still fun to watch. What have we got here? Rawhead Rex. Rawhead Rex, this is a Scottish horror film starring a giant man in a big rubber suit. There was a German guy that was about 6'10" who they got to star in this, and it's a rubber suit. And there's a really famous weird scene where a priest is obsessed with him and prays to him, and Rawhead Rex actually pisses on the priest, which is very, very silly. At the beginning, I explained that there was a film that I had to have that I rented from childhood, and this is it, Neon Maniacs. This is where the obsession for collecting came from. This is a fantastic slasher movie starring a group of monsters that all have individual outfits. There's samurai, a doctor, an archer, and a Neanderthal. And they're all hurt by water. They die when they get rained on. But it's really, really cool. Not a lot of people know about it. This is one just for those who don't know, Scanners, a fantastic movie about people with superpowers, and has probably the single best head explosion ever put to film, thanks to Tom Savini. Edge of Hell, I just need to spotlight this one for a second because this is insane. It stars a guy named John Mickle Thor, who he was the lead, the frontman of a band called Thor. This is a vanity project. He loves himself way too much. He goes to this house with his girlfriend and their band, who are recording a new album, and they have to fight off Beelzebub. And it's effectively this really, really greasy muscle man with big 80s hair fighting rubber puppets at the end. It sucks in the best possible way. Got some classics series, the Howling series, the Halloween series, including another repro by Ashi Hack-O-Lantern, which is a fantastically terrible slasher movie you should watch. The Nightmare on Elm Street series, everyone's definitely seen these, and a lot of covers that you probably would remember. And we're kind of making our way down to the bottom here. Let's have a look. Girls School Screams, which is a fantastic trauma film. The thing I love most about this cover is why is her hand so small? It doesn't make any sense. That one's great. The Video Dead, which is a fantastic 80s zombie movie about zombies that come out of the TV. This has an alternate holographic cover, which I sadly don't have, but it's really, really cool and definitely a great watch. Body Melt, which is an Australian horror movie, and John Howard's in it, as in Harold Bishop from Neighbours, as about people who get injected with this stuff that's supposed to make them better, but instead it just makes them melt. Absolutely whack and cool. You're Dark, Return of the Living Dead 2. You've got Motel Hell, which is a classic. Juvenatrix, which is called Rejuvenatrix in other regions, about a woman who's obsessed with her. She's very vain, obsessed with her looks, and this doctor gives her this serum that she gets younger, and eventually she has to eat people to survive and keep herself young. And then that ends in a terrible way. Cut and Run, really, really cool cannibal film made by Ruggiero Deodato, the guy who did Cannibal Ferox. It's kind of like Cannibal Light. If Cannibal Holocaust and Cannibal Ferox, which are some of the most controversial films of all time, are too heavy for you, this is cool. Michael Berryman on the front, with his trademark look. Of course, he had I don't think it was alopecia. I think it was something else, but it caused him to have no hair, no fingernails, and no sweat glands either, which was a bit scary for him, I think, at times. Another cool one, is Trick or Treat. This is about a dead rock star that comes back to life and has Ozzy Osbourne starring an anti-heavy metal priest. Absolute trash. Great fun watch. Toxic Avenger Part 2, fantastic cover. I just wish Toxie was that massive and buff and the real thing. The Gate, which is about these, it's kind of like a kid's horror movie, this one. It's really cool. Definitely worth a watch if you've never seen it. I'll show you another really old label. K&C is quite an old label. Again, a lot of these older collectors will have a whole group of these. City of the Living Dead, very famous Italian zombie movie. Hell Night is another one starring Linda Blair from The Exorcist. It's kind of like another sorority slasher movie. Really cool, a little bit surreal. Definitely an interesting one. Child's Play, everyone loves Chucky. Down the bottom, quite a rare one, Legend of the Boggy Creek. It has a 2-stick on it, but it's not 2. It's actually the first film. Quite a hard one to find. It's kind of like a Bigfoot horror movie. Really weird and silly. Bloodhook is another one. That's a great horror comedy, very campy and cheesy. The Alchemist. This is one I actually haven't watched. Something I want to note is a lot of people ask me, have you watched all 1,000 films you have? No, I definitely haven't. I have hundreds of films that I have, to watch. And I think that's what makes it so fun, is that I can come in here and, pull out any kind of random tape. And there's a pretty good chance, that I've seen it. But then sometimes there's ones that I haven't. Another great one, Evil Speak, about a man who's bullied. That's Ron Howard's brother. I always forget his name. Who's bullied, and he uses a computer to bring about this evil Spanish monk who was into demons and stuff. Woman from Deep River, which is also Cannibal Ferox, but heavily cut down. A lot of the violent scenes were trimmed right down to make that rating. This is one that Tommy got me, The Vagrant. Bill Paxton's hilarious. It stars Michael Ironside as this vagrant that just will not leave him alone and just ruins his life. It's more of a comedy than a horror, but it's just very silly. Rosemary's Killer is another really classic one with a great head explosion by Tom Savini. I think that's probably everything there, Ben. So I haven't been reading too much of the comments, but if anyone has any questions whilst we've got a few minutes left.
Yep, please fire them away in the comments right now if you have any questions for Dusty. We've probably got a few more minutes before we're going to go over to Thomas, who's going to do a playthrough of Sonic Hedgehog 2. I think most of the comments, Dusty, have been like, wow, awesome, that's great, that's awesome. So, there's been a lot of love and appreciation for it. Dude, are you watching more films now in lockdown? Are you actually getting through these now that you've got some spare time?
Yeah, I definitely am. I'm definitely finding that there is more time spent. I try to watch, I would say, probably 2 or 3 tapes a week. This room is great. There's plenty of space. It's a really cool, comforting place for me to come and just enjoy this and be surrounded by the things that I love. That's definitely why I do it.
We'll just look at that view there. We've got a question from Andrew saying, do you have much Ozploitation movies?
I do not. Ozploitation stuff, some of it's really expensive, and I think what I prefer to collect is I have things that are nostalgic to me, some horror stuff that I really like. But I really enjoy the weird, wacky stuff. So like the ninja stuff, the American stuff, I'm a big fan of. Ozploitation's not really for me.
Fair enough.
And yeah, some of them are really expensive to find.
Quick question from Nick. What is your biggest grail in sight for the future purchase? I guess he was going to write there.
Oh, that's a good one. I think my biggest grail in sight for the future would probably be some Japanese stuff. Some really obscure, quite dark Japanese stuff. That's a very deep hole to get into. Tumbling Dole of Flesh is what it's called, and I've only ever seen one copy go for sale, and it was for about $1,800 USD. So it's a long hunt for that one, I think.
It's pretty cool. What is your best of the worst, Dusty, from Richard?
Oh, my best of the worst. I would probably say Creating Rem Lazar. Absolutely creating Rem Lazar. It's a kids doc. Like I said, it's a failed pilot for a kids TV show. It's one of the best, worst things I've ever seen. If anyone's a fan of Red Letter Media, it was a big episode of theirs. I had to have it, and as I said, I'm pretty sure I'm the only person mad enough to pay for it to get it over to Australia.
And then Ash is asking if you had to pick one tape, what would it be? One tape out of all of that.
Oh, Jesus Christ, Ashy, come on, mate. I think if I was going to pick one tape, it would be, this one's a little bit graphic. Guinea Pig 2, Flowers of Flesh and Blood. So this is a faux snuff film, and the first time a full body prosthetic was used. And I picked this up this year, and it's probably one of my rarest tapes. And yeah, I think it explains, it's everything I like. It's horror, it's weird, it's extreme, it's foreign, that would definitely be it.
All right, well, it's been awesome, Dusty. Thank you so much for giving us that tour, man. We've got to go over to Thomas on Twitch, who's going to do a playthrough of Sonic the Hedgehog 2. But Dusty, thank you so much for your time, man. It's been wonderful to see the room. It's so amazing, and I look forward to when we're able to do another VHS Fleapit upstairs and get some more trash happening at 89.
Oh, mate, I cannot wait. I think it's going to be a fantastic year. We'll be doing showing some of the weirdest and shittest movies we can possibly find. So I'm heaps excited for it.
It'll be awesome. All right, man. Thank you so much. I'll see you soon. Stay safe and well. Thank you for your time. Great to hang out, and see you soon. Thanks, Dusty.
Thank you.
See you, mate.
Thanks for the opportunity, mate. Take care.
Oh,
Bye.
my pleasure. See ya.